From Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome local filmmaker Yuby Hernandez. Yuby is a New York City native from Washington Heights and has over a decade of experience in nonprofit management. Besides her nonprofit work, she has a passion for documentary filmmaking, having co-directed Venticinco Domino and Un Honesto and directed Un Bizcocho Para Mi. She has worked for the Gotham Film and Media Institute, Tribecca Film Festival, and associate produced the documentary Aftershock. In addition, she's a graduate of Wellesley College and has attained an MFA from the School of Visual Arts SocDoc program. We're going to talk with her about her work behind the camera. But first, let me welcome you, Yuby, to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Aaron. It's an honor to be here.
I appreciate you making the time. So, as we heard from your bio, you work a lot on documentaries. It's kind of like your main focus. So, what is it about that form that speaks to you?
So, I've always wanted to be an artist since I was 7. I remember I was listening to bachata on the TV, and I ran into the living room, and I was like, when I grow up, I'm going to be a bachatera. My mom was like, let's think about that. And so I really spent a lot of time trying to develop my medium, and I've dabbled in everything from dance, mosaics. I've done theater. I've done photography. So I've done a lot of different art, but it wasn't until I got to documentary that I was really able to pull all of my skill sets together, right? So you have to be very good at being you need to be very good at interviewing people. You need to be able to build relationships. You also need to be able to find a story where maybe someone else might not be able to find the story. So you have to be very curious. You also, in documentary, it has the power to really highlight stories that people may not look at, right? So like Domino. You walk by the Domino's players in our neighborhood every single day, but you may not know their story. So what is the story there? It's a lot about curiosity. It's a lot about wanting to highlight and expand voices that are part of our community. It's a lot about building relationships, and it's a really collaborative medium. And so when I fell into documentary, it just felt right.
So you fell in the documentary, and then, doing it is interesting as far as exploring all the ways, like you're saying, and you had the passion for it. So was there like an aha moment where you're like, no, I'm a filmmaker. I'm going to do this for a living. I'm going to pursue this. Like, when did that penny drop for you at one point?
Yeah.
When was that?
Actually at the Inwood Film Festival.
Well, gosh. Okay. Well, thanks. Not a planned response, folks. Okay, just so you know.
Not a planned response.
Okay,
but very,
tell me
very
more.
True. So, I was working with Ben Nader-Sadoff.
Yes.
And he is an incredible filmmaker and colleague and friend. And so we made Domino, which is about the Domino's players. And then I had been doing a year of community service in Baltimore as part of Repair the World. And when I came back to New York City, one of the biggest contrasts that I found between Baltimore and New York was that Baltimore is extensively a food desert in many areas. Yet there's not enough access to like fruits and vegetables. Yet in Washington Heights and Inwood, where we have a bodega or a supermarket at very walking distances, you still saw a lot of produce vendors on the street. And so I wanted to figure out, why did we have so many produce vendors? What was the need for produce vendors on the street if we had produce and vegetables like accessible at stores? And so Ben and I decided to make that film, and we were very intentional about the way that we wanted to tell that story. We took all of the we thought we took all of the politics out. Any mention of politics, of permits, of policing, we really took it out, because we just wanted to tell a story about the passion of the work that people do and why they're produce vendors in our neighborhood, and like what motivates them to choose this as their medium of business. And I was at the Inwood Film Festival, and a lady comes up to me and she's like, "Your film is so political." Which, like, for me, like, that was a moment where I was like, wait, what? We had intentionally taken out any mention of politics, any mention of...
So what'd that do to you? Like, I mean, obviously your response was your response. So like, but that's just goes to show you can't control how people interpret your work.
Right. You can't control how people interpret your work. And that really made me reflect about the voice that we had put into that film. Obviously, the voice and the story that we were trying to tell was so strong that people were responding to it and interpreting it in many different ways. And so that made me think, wait, there's something here.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do this professionally. Like, and so it really triggered me to apply for film school. And I applied to one school. I did my research. I went and did the site visits, and I decided that I wanted to go to SVA. I applied, and I got in.
Well, that's amazing. First off, it's wonderful to hear that. And, we're kind of, we're talking off camera. We're approaching our 10th year of the Inwood Film Festival. And, like, it's wonderful. I always tell people, whether it's our Alfresco program or this podcast now in its 6th season, consistency is key. Like, staying in the game is, I know, and it's difficult. There's no givens. There's a lot of nonprofits that have risen and have fallen in this neighborhood in our short time of being alive here for 10 years. But the fact that, this was one of our very first festival entries, and to see how you've come along from that as someone who had, again, a passion and a hunger to create and found your vocation through that. It's incredibly rewarding for me to hear, and I think people in this neighborhood would be very proud of you, for what you've accomplished. So you've gone on to do many different projects since that first film 10 years ago. So do you have a particular one you're most proud of to date?
I mean, I feel like every film that I've done has shown a different side of me. And Aaron, you are 100% correct. I would not be here today without the support of you and of all your team and the Inwood Art Works, because, I fell into documentary. As a first generation Latina, who the hell says that they're going to go to film school?
Maybe there's a little village, the DR, or does Santiago have a neighborhood that's all about documentary filmmaking? No? Okay.
No. And so, it was very left field for me to fall into this space and to actually continue and be consistent and work. Yeah. But it was only possible because I had that community, because I had the support of Inwood Art Works and of other incredible filmmakers within the community. And so, with Domino, I feel like that's a funny film. We tried to really highlight the voice of the neighborhood and, like, really talk about the vibrancy and really talk about all of the things that, it's unique to see people playing dominoes on the street, but yet it's still so intrinsic to our Dominican culture, our Latin American culture, right? But then, like, the produce vendors, Un Honesto, it was really about talking about resilience, because a lot of those produce vendors started selling produce because they didn't have other means to make money. And so it really talked about resilience, and I identified with that, because you have to be resilient to be a filmmaker.
You have to have thick skin and passion and a bank account.
Yeah. or be a good fundraiser, right?
Be a good fundraiser.
Or be a good fundraiser.
Because unfortunately, everything costs money.
Everything costs money, right?
Yeah.
And so then after that, I decided that I wanted to make a cake for me. And that film, actually, it took me 4 years to make. Not because, a 12-minute film should take you 4 years, but because it was so personal. But it was also, not only was it a love letter to my mother and to my family, but it was also really personal to me because it was the first film that I directed, edited, produced. I did everything except color correct and sound mix on that film.
It's very personal.
And it's a very personal film where, I talked about the parallel journeys of my mother, building her business and putting our family through and making sure that we went to school and I'm here because of her and my father's efforts, but then also pushing that narrative forward, right? Yeah. So, like, how she manifested herself through her business, and then I'm trying to manifest myself as an artist. And so those parallel journeys and really bringing that to light was something super powerful for me. And so I felt like every film that I've done has resonated in one way or another, but allowed me to also expand as a storyteller.
100%. No, it's a very personal story, and people loved it. And I believe it won an award for documentary filmmaking, did it
It
not?
did at the Inwood Film
All
Festival.
right, just making sure a little golden star on the forehead there. And just so you know, it's not me giving out the awards. It's a big panel of people, filmmakers in the industry, and playwrights, and professionals in arts and culture, and it's pretty special. It's very competitive, I have to say.
And I'm grateful.
And we're happy to have you. You mentioned about the different facets of your personality and being from here, and also the Dominican culture, which is so intrinsic to our neighborhood, but just like all the different cultures are. So what about this Northern Manhattan world prompts you and moves you to keep shining a light? Because you keep all through those documentaries we talked about are all about the culture up here in some way. So you shine light in these stories and people that are easily missed yet integral to the fabric of this uptown community.
Right. And so, I think that that's the power of documentary, and that's what really keeps me curious and engaged. I mean, there's that one documentary about the pigeon, the baby pigeon.
Strawn, it's been a very hot topic. People love that film. Shout out to Samuel Crowe.
Right. And so I would never in my life have thought about the life cycle of a pigeon.
Yeah.
And why would I want to look at that? And I think that same curiosity, that desire to really learn about what's around us and who we are as people, even through a pigeon or through cake or through dominoes playing or fruit vending, is what really keeps me grounded and making stories that are powerful, impactful, are, elevating other people's voices and giving them a voice.
The ordinary can be extraordinary, right?
Right.
Well, you do a great job in focusing on our little neck of the woods with that. Go ahead.
And not to interrupt you, but also representation matters, right? And so through documentary, women are a lot more represented in documentary than they are in narrative filmmaking, because not only are women more represented behind the camera, but they're also represented in front of the camera. There are a lot more narrative films that have a variety of representation of women in documentary than there is in narrative. And so that inspires me to tell stories about our neighborhood, because representation matters. The stories of the people who are here, my neighbors, my friends, my colleagues, matter. And so to answer your question, that's what keeps me coming back.
Love it. We totally agree with you. You've been involved as an individual artist, and also through your decade of experience, part of our local small business community, and throughout different groups, and we won't name them all because why? So because I feel you're very qualified. So because of your experience to offer your opinion, which is only opinion, we're on a podcast. This is not going to be law on this community. So, what's your opinion on if this community will continue and you're welcoming these uptown artists and cultural initiatives for those who need representation, or just anybody in general? But I think your point of representation is quite well heated. It's like this neighborhood, New York City's capital C with change. And so, I mean, how hospitable is this neighborhood, do you feel, in your opinion, going to continue to be?
So, this neighborhood, you have a lot of different groups, and it's really about navigating those groups so that you can get representation, right? Do you build relationships with like the Dominican Film Festival, or do you build relationships with the Inwood Film Festival? Do you build relationships with NOMA? Do you build, it's, as a filmmaker, you really have to find the people who support you, and you really have to find your community. And I think that particularly in this neighborhood, it's really about navigating relationships and the politics of our lovely neighborhood. And so I think that yes, there is space for our filmmakers to be represented. I think there's space for our filmmakers to be represented more. I think that there's space for us to collaborate a lot more and really elevate our voices in so many more ways. But I do think that there's a lot of work that could be done to make the visibility of our artists stronger, the cross collaborative potential stronger, and we should unite to really support our filmmakers instead of, in many ways, our community is still sometimes very divided.
Indeed, indeed. Well, hopefully through like these events we do and other people, we can find more ways of collaborating amongst everybody.
Yeah.
So going to back to your grad school days, oh so long ago. What
2020.
like yeah, 2020. It's not too far, but close enough. And it's important for. I always feel this podcast has been educational for. Not just because you listen to it, but there's actual people who have experience. You can speak to people who are trying to get a leg up. So you've been through the grad school circuit for filmmaking, and you're juggling projects. And do you have any advice / lessons learned for those filmmakers that are out there trying to make a name for themselves and creating their own content, like you?
Thank you. So the film industry is really about relationships, and it's really about not being shy. You have to knock on those doors. You have to do those cold calls. You have to do those cold emails. LinkedIn is your friend. Going to events is your friend. You have to network. Yes, it's about what you know, but in a lot of ways, in a lot more ways than a lot of people are told, particularly kids of color like myself, it is about who you know. How do you get yourself in through that door, right? So when I went to grad school, I was working full time and fundraising for my graduate school education full time. If I didn't have those community connections, if I didn't have the support from other filmmakers to write me letters of recommendation, from other filmmakers, to say, oh, hey, my colleague Yuby applied for this grant, you should definitely consider her. If I didn't have other filmmakers that I could collaborate with and have them shoot for me or have them edit for me so that I could focus on my full-time job, like I would not have been able to manage the complexity of having to work and study and then also fundraise all together. Yeah. And so it's really about, like, if I can really give kids or anyone who's emerging as a filmmaker any advice, be organized. Make a plan for yourself of what works for you. Whatever tool works for you so that you can create your vision and create your mission. Like, this is what I want to accomplish in the next 5 years, and this is how I'm going to accomplish it before you start. Think about who are your connections and what are the connections that you need to build. And then also just make sure that you have that support system, because it's really about having people who are going to hold you up when you're tired. You've been working for 12 hours and, you still have homework to do. And, who's going to make sure that they say, no, you got this, you can do it and really move forward. But really build those connections.
And Yuby is one of those connections. So you may want to reach out to her after you hear this podcast and say, hey, Yuby, that's great advice. Could you give me some help? And you never know. And I'll add one thing to all those wonderful things. Surround yourself with great people.
Yes.
Who are smarter and more talented than you are, but in their respect. Like color correction. I don't do color correction. That person is a wonderful color corrector. Get that person, whoever
I hate
it is.
editing.
There you go. So find an editor who can help you out. It's just work smarter, not harder, is the whole thing.
Yeah, I'd rather tell you, like, this is how I want the story to go. Figure it out.
Yeah, there we go. And that's executive producing at its finest right there. So when I bring you to the present and beyond now, what's up for you in 2025 and beyond? I think you have some news to share. And maybe some other things.
So, breaking news. I mean, with our carrot of a president, we don't know what's going to really happen, but I'm very honored to have been selected as a semifinalist for the 2025 Fulbright.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Fabulous. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm still waiting to hear back if there will be funding for 2025.
Of course.
Or even if finalists will be selected because of all of the changes in funding. But it's still an honor to have been selected. And of course, I couldn't have done it without the support of our incredible Aaron. And so hopefully, good things to come, and I will start working on my first feature.
No doubt more good things are to come, and we fully believe in you, and keep rocking it out. That's fabulous, and we look forward. Do you want to talk about just the log line of your feature without going into the whole thing?
Yeah, so my next film will be called Casabe como herencia. So Casabe as inheritance. And it will it started as a personal film, as all of my films kind of start as
You
personal
stay
films.
on brand, Yuby.
I could be a mess, but I stay on brand,
That's right.
And so my grandmother used to make casabe, which is a flatbread made of yuca or cassava root. And so I wanted to tell the story of her legacy. Much like my mother built her business baking cakes, my grandmother built a business and raised 15 kids, which is a lot, with casabe and my grandfather's farm. And so that was very intrinsic into my summers every year when I went back to the Dominican Republic. But then when I started looking at the ways that casabe has been impactful of our heritage, it has really become an internationally recognized food. It just became a UNESCO World Heritage Food item. And so this film will be an international film following not only my personal story, but also the Haitians who moved to the Dominican Republic for a better life and the Dominicans who moved to the United States for a better life, all through the voice or the lens of casabe.
Amazing. Well, we look forward to it, and hopefully, I'll make a plea out there in a pitch. If you like what you just heard, you know where to find her. In a second, I want to ask you, where can they find you, reach out to you, to connect with you? Perhaps you want to fund this project.
Please.
Or know more about Yuby. Where can they go?
You can find me on my LinkedIn, Yuby Hernandez, which is easy and accessible. You can also find me on my Instagram, which is BACHMAMI 91. So Bachamami 91. Not gonna lie, I'm a bachatera at heart. You can also email me, which I assume Aaron will put my contact information
If you like. Yeah.
Under the podcast. But yes, if you want to support a local artist, you want to help tell an international story that is really impactful and personal, and please throw some dollars my way.
There you go. Folks, you have your marching orders. Get this film made. We need more great films from Yuby, all right? Well, Yuby, it's been a pleasure speaking with you and sharing your work, and we're very proud of you. Keep on rocking in the free world, as we say. And folks, you're here on Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where you meet the musicians, writers, theater makers, filmmakers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in Northern Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now and rate and review this podcast 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on. Many thanks to the Church of Good Shepherd here for hosting us, and to Heightside.com for uptown promotional support. You can support On Air, by the way, and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation to inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo at Inwood Art Works. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with all that we do, including the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, live concert performances, and so much more. Inwood Art Works On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, and Inwood Art Works programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Art Works On Air.